On the afternoon of November 24, 1971, a man walked to the ticket counter. He bought a one-way ticket for a short flight. The flight was Northwest Orient Airlines Flight 305. It was going from Portland, Oregon, to Seattle, Washington. He gave the name Dan Cooper. He paid with cash. No one thought anything was unusual. He looked like any other businessman. He was in his mid-40s. He wore a dark suit. He wore a white shirt. He wore a black tie. He carried a briefcase. The man boarded the Boeing 727 aircraft. The plane was not very full. He took a seat in the back, in row 18, seat E. He sat by himself. After takeoff, he ordered a drink. He chose a bourbon and soda. The flight attendant who served him was named Florence Schaffner. She said he was quiet and unremarkable. He smoked a cigarette. He looked out the window. Nothing about his behavior suggested the strange events that would soon happen. He acted like a normal passenger on a routine flight. The short journey was supposed to last only about 30 minutes. As the plane flew north towards Seattle, the man remained composed. The flight attendant, Florence Schaffner, sat down next to the man. She was trying to stay calm. The man was not aggressive. He was very specific and controlled. He told her his demands. He wanted $200,000 in cash. The money had to be in unmarked $20 bills. He also asked for 4 parachutes. 2 of them were main parachutes. 2 of them were reserve parachutes. His quiet tone was more frightening than a loud voice. He told her to take his demands to the captain. She gave the note and the message to the pilot, Captain William Scott. The captain immediately contacted air traffic control and told them about the hijacking. The airline's president, Donald Nyrop, was informed and made a quick decision to cooperate. The safety of the passengers was the most important thing. The airline started working to get the money and the parachutes. The man, who called himself Dan Cooper, continued to be polite. He ordered another bourbon and soda and even offered to pay. The flight attendant told him not to worry about it. He pointed out landmarks below, mentioning Tacoma, and seemed to know the area. The other passengers did not know what was happening. Attendants said a small mechanical problem required circling before landing. No one panicked. Cooper's instructions were very clear. He did not want a scene, only his demands met. The FBI and local police gathered money from Seattle banks and found 4 parachutes at a local skydiving school. Everything was being prepared as Cooper had requested. The plane continued to circle, waiting for the signal to land. The man in the back of the plane waited patiently as the plane circled over Puget Sound near Seattle. This gave the airline and the police time. At about 5:39 p.m., the plane finally landed at Seattle-Tacoma International Airport. It was dark outside. The pilot was told to park the plane in a remote, well-lit area. This was to keep it away from the main terminal. Other aircraft. The authorities did not want to put anyone else in danger. Cooper was still in control. He told the pilot to turn off all the cabin lights, so no one could see inside the plane easily. He was careful. He knew that police snipers might be watching. He was thinking a few steps ahead. On the ground, an airline employee brought the money. Parachutes were brought to the plane. The employee drove a small car to the aircraft. He handed a large bag of cash. 4 parachutes were handed to a flight attendant. The flight attendant, Tina Mucklow, brought them on board. Cooper checked the items carefully. He looked through the bag of money. He did not seem to count it all, but he checked that it was there. He also looked at the parachutes. He seemed to know what he was looking for. His inspection was quick but thorough. He appeared satisfied with what he received. Once he had the money and parachutes, Cooper kept his promise. He allowed all the passengers to leave the plane. There were 36 passengers in total. They walked off the plane and into the cold night air. They were safe. Cooper also let 2 of the flight attendants go. Florence Schaffner, another attendant. Only the flight crew remained. Pilot, co-pilot, flight engineer, flight attendant Tina Mucklow. They were still his hostages. The plane was now ready for the next part of Cooper's plan. Cooper then gave new instructions to the pilot. He wanted to fly to Mexico City, but first, the plane needed more fuel. A fuel truck was brought to the plane. The refueling process was slow. Cooper seemed nervous during this time. He was worried about a surprise attack. He told the crew that he might have to use the bomb if anything went wrong. The ground crew worked as quickly as they could. After the plane was refueled, Cooper described his flight plan. He wanted the plane to fly at a low altitude. He also wanted a slow speed. The landing gear had to stay down. The wing flaps had to be set at 15 degrees. These were strange requests. At approximately 7:40 p.m., the Boeing 727 took off from Seattle. The night was dark and stormy. Heavy rain, strong winds hit the aircraft. The crew followed Cooper's specific instructions. They flew south toward Reno, Nevada, the first stop on the way to Mexico City. The plane stayed below 10,000 feet. Its speed was kept at around 200 miles per hour. These conditions were not normal for a jetliner. The low speed and altitude made the plane less efficient. But it was exactly what Cooper wanted for his next move. Inside the plane, Cooper told the remaining flight attendant, Tina Mucklow, to go into the cockpit. She was to stay there with the other crew members. He wanted to be alone in the main cabin. Before she left, he tied something around the bag of money. It looked like he was securing it to his body. He was calm and methodical. He put on one of the parachutes. He left the other 3 parachutes behind on the plane. His last words to the crew were spoken through the plane's intercom system. He was polite, even at this final stage of his plan. The crew stayed in the locked cockpit. They could not see what Cooper was doing. They could only guess. Around 8:00 p.m., they noticed a change in the air pressure in the cabin. This meant that a door had been opened. A warning light also came on in the cockpit. It showed that the aft air stair was down. This was the staircase at the very back of the Boeing 727. It could be lowered during flight. This feature was unique to this type of plane. Cooper had chosen his aircraft very carefully. He was using its design to his advantage. Sometime between 8:00 p.m. and 8:13 p.m., Dan Cooper jumped. He leaped from the back of the plane into the dark, stormy night. He carried the $200,000 with him. He was somewhere over the forests of southwestern Washington. The exact location was unknown. The crew felt a slight change in the plane's movement. They believed this was the moment he jumped. He disappeared without a trace. The plane continued flying. The crew landed safely in Reno, Nevada a few hours later. When they checked the cabin, it was empty. Dan Cooper was gone. Section 5. The search begins. Norjack and the empty woods. When the plane landed in Reno, the FBI was waiting. Agents immediately swarmed the aircraft. They found it empty, except for the crew. The search for the hijacker began. He was now a fugitive. The FBI gave the case a code name, Norjack, Northwest Hijacking. It became one of the largest investigations in US history. The first challenge was figuring where Cooper might have landed. The pilots could only give a general area. The jump happened somewhere between Seattle and Reno. Map showing the flight path and the estimated jump zone near Ariel. The primary search zone was in southwestern Washington, near the small town of Ariel. The terrain was rugged. Mountains, deep ravines, thick trees. The weather made it worse. Cold, wet, windy. Snow covered the higher elevations. The FBI, local police, and military personnel started a massive ground search. Hundreds of people combed through the woods. They looked for any sign of the jumper. They searched for a body. They searched for a parachute. They searched for the money. The search from the air was just as intense. Helicopters flew low over the forest. Airplanes flew low over the forest. But the thick canopy made it nearly impossible to see the ground. They used every tool they had. Trained search dogs were brought in. Teams of soldiers walked in straight lines through the dense undergrowth. The effort was huge. For weeks they looked, but they found nothing. There was no parachute caught in a tree. There was no sign of a campfire. There was no body. It was as if the man had vanished into thin air. The FBI started a wide-ranging criminal investigation. Dan Cooper was likely an alias. A reporter made a mistake and called him D.B. Cooper. That name stuck in the public's mind. Investigators interviewed every person who might have seen him. The ticket agent, the flight crew, the passengers. They created a composite sketch based on descriptions. The sketch was sent to newspapers and television stations across the country. The FBI hoped someone would recognize the man in the dark suit. The FBI agents carefully examined the plane in Reno. They were looking for any evidence the hijacker might have left behind. They found several important items. Cooper had left 2 of the 4 parachutes on the plane. He also left his black clip-on tie on his seat. The black clip-on tie. These items became key pieces of evidence. The FBI took them to their laboratory for analysis. They hoped these clues would help them identify the mysterious man. The investigation was now a scientific one. Every small detail was important. The agents knew that physical evidence does not lie. The FBI laboratory examined the tie using powerful microscopes. They found traces of different materials on the tie. In 2011, with new technology, scientists found something interesting. They discovered particles of pure titanium and other rare metals. These materials were not common at the time. They were used in very specific industries, like aircraft manufacturing or advanced chemical engineering. This suggested Cooper might have worked as an engineer or a manager in one of these fields. The tie provided a small window into the man's possible life and profession. The agents also processed the cabin for fingerprints. They found several partial prints on items Cooper had touched. He had handled a magazine. He had handled his drinking glass. Most prints were smudged or incomplete. They were not good enough to make a positive identification. For years, the FBI could not match the prints to anyone. This was a major dead end. Cooper had been careful not to leave clear prints behind. Or perhaps he was just lucky. Other items found on the plane included cigarette butts. Cooper had smoked several cigarettes during the flight. The brand was Raleigh. The FBI collected these butts to test for DNA. In the 1970s, DNA tech did not exist. But the FBI saved the evidence. Years later, they tried to extract a DNA profile. The results were not conclusive. It was possible the DNA did not belong to Cooper. Someone else could have touched the cigarettes. The physical evidence left a trail, but a faint one. It gave hints, but no clear answers about the man's identity. For almost 9 years, the case grew cold. There were no new leads. There was no new evidence. The FBI had investigated thousands of suspects, but none could be proven to be Cooper. The public remained fascinated, but the official investigation had stalled. Then, in February 1980, something unexpected happened. A young boy was playing on a sandy beach. His name was Brian Ingram. He was 8 years old. He was with his family on the shore of the Columbia River near Tenor. Brian was digging in the sand. He was trying to make a campfire. As he cleared away the damp sand, he found something unusual. He uncovered 3 bundles. Bundle 1, old rotting paper held with a rubber band. Bundle 2, wet, sand-stained bills. Bundle 3, another rubber-banded stack. When he looked closer, he saw that it was money. It was a stack of $20 bills. The bills were wet and damaged. His family did not know what they had found at first. They took the money to the police. The police contacted the FBI. The discovery brought the D.B. Cooper case back into the news. The FBI took the money to their laboratory. They checked the serial numbers on the bills. They compared them to the ransom serial number list from 1971. The numbers matched. It was part of the Cooper ransom. Brian Ingram had found about $5,800. The bills were in poor condition, water and sand damage. The discovery was a major breakthrough. It was the first solid piece of evidence found outside the airplane. It proved some of the money ended up near the river. This new evidence created more questions than answers. Tenor was many miles from the estimated jump zone. It was not on the direct flight path. So how did the money get there? Theory 1. The money washed down from a smaller river into the Columbia. Theory 2. Cooper himself buried the money at Tenor. Theory 3. Cooper survived the jump and hid some cash. But if he did, why only a small amount? And why did he never return for it? The money on the riverbank was a puzzle inside a mystery. Over the years, the FBI investigated more than 1,000 possible suspects. The case attracted many theories and amateur detectives. Many people claimed to know who Cooper was. Some men even confessed to being the hijacker, but the FBI ruled them all out. One of the most common theories was that Cooper did not survive the jump. He jumped at night. He jumped into a storm. He jumped over a dense forest. He was wearing a business suit, not proper survival gear. It is very likely he was killed on impact or died from exposure to the cold. Another major theory is that Cooper was an experienced military veteran. He knew about the Boeing 727's aft air stair. He knew what kind of parachutes to ask for. He remained calm under pressure. Some people believe he was a paratrooper. Others believe he was a member of a special forces unit. No specific military person has ever been definitively linked to the crime. Several specific individuals became prominent suspects. Montage, Richard McCoy Jr., Dwayne Weber, and others. One man was named Richard McCoy Jr. He was a Vietnam veteran. He was a skydiver. In 1972, just a few months after the Cooper hijacking, McCoy hijacked a plane himself. His methods were very similar to Cooper's. He also demanded money and jumped from the back of a Boeing 727. The FBI considered him a strong suspect, but there were problems with this theory. McCoy did not match the physical description given by the flight attendants, and he had a solid alibi for the night of the Cooper hijacking. He was at home with his family. Another popular suspect was a man named Dwayne Weber. On his deathbed in 1995, he told his wife, "I am Dan Cooper." After he died, his wife started to look into his past. She found that he had a criminal record and had spent time in prison. He also looked similar to the composite sketch. He had a knee injury that he said he got from jumping out of a plane. The FBI looked into Weber. They even compared his DNA to the partial sample from Cooper's tie. The test was not a match. Like all the other suspects, the evidence against him was not strong enough. For 45 years, the FBI actively investigated the D.B. Cooper case. It was one of the longest and most famous unsolved cases in their history. Agents followed thousands of leads. They used every new technology that became available. DNA analysis, metal analysis, advanced forensic techniques. But the trail always went cold. Each new tip and each new suspect led to another dead end. The mystery seemed impossible to solve. The identity of the man who called himself Dan Cooper remained unknown. The file grew thicker with reports, but no closer to a conclusion. In July 2016, the FBI made a major announcement. They were officially closing the active investigation. They said they needed to focus their resources on other cases. They had looked at all the credible leads and had found no definitive answers. The case was not completely closed forever. The FBI said they would still look at any new physical evidence that might appear. For example, if someone found the rest of the ransom money or the parachute, they would investigate, but they would no longer actively search for Cooper. The Northwest case was now considered a cold case. Today, the story of D.B. Cooper is more a legend than a police matter. We know a lot about what happened on that flight in 1971. We know the man's demands. We know how he escaped. We know that some of the money was found. But the most important questions are still unanswered. We do not know who D.B. Cooper really was. We do not know if he survived the jump and lived a new life. We do not know if he died in the wilderness, his body and the money lost forever. The lack of answers is what makes the story so powerful. The case of D.B. Cooper remains the only unsolved air piracy case in American history. It is a perfect crime, a mystery that has captured the public's imagination for decades. People continue to write books, make documentaries and search for clues. They are drawn to the image of a lone man who defied the authorities and then vanished into the night. His story reminds us that some puzzles may never be solved. The man named Dan Cooper left behind a few small clues and a very big question.